I want to tell you a bit about 2009 Nate. 2009 Nate has just gotten out of the military. Well, not quite. Still in officially, but home dealing with a med board. Trying to figure out what civilian life looks like and feels like again. And one of my friends at the time puts on the movie Equilibrium. You know the one, Christian Bale, gun kata, slicked back hair, white uniform, moving through rooms full of armed guards like a very angry chess piece. And 2009 Nate's response was, "This is the most badass thing I have ever seen." That's it. That's the whole review. Gun kata. Badass. Done. And here's the thing I want to say to 2009 Nate if I could go back. Hey bud, you're right. The gun kata is badass. Christian Bale is incredible in this film. The action sequences are extraordinary. And you, my friend, just accidentally watched one of the most precise examinations of emotional suppression, authoritarian control, and what happens when a system decides that human feeling is the enemy that has ever been committed to film, without even knowing it. And that's not a criticism of 2009 Nate. That's actually the beauty of this movie. You think you're getting one thing, and then you watch it again, and you immediately go, oh, this is deeper than badass gunfighting. And you know what? That's what great art does. It meets you where you are, and it gives you what you came for, and then leaves something behind that you don't fully find until you're ready for it. Now, before we get into the deeper stuff, I need to address something. The puppy scene. If you know me in reality, then you know I absolutely love animals. I always have. Some of my deepest real-life losses have involved animals. So to that point, I completely understand John Wick's entire motivation. All of it. All the body counts. Justified. Please don't talk to me about proportional response. And when John Preston finds that dog in a bombed-out building in the middle of the wasteland and decides this is worth dying for, I'll tell you, I felt that in a way that went way past the movie. So, welcome to Checkpoint Thursday. I'm Nate, and this is Equilibrium. You thought you were just getting gun kata? I mean, you are getting gun kata. And a philosophy degree. And hey, if you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the lobby. Be sure to hit subscribe and smash that bell so you never miss a drop. Brand new episodes every Monday and Thursday, and sometimes Sunday. Now, let's get into it. For anyone who hasn't seen the film Equilibrium, first of all, please go and watch it. I'll still be here when you get back. But here's the setup. The year is 2072. World War III happened. The survivors looked around at the rubble and said, hey, you know what caused all of this? Feelings. Human emotion. That's the problem. If we just got rid of that, we'd all be fine. Which is, and I say this with love, the most spectacularly wrong conclusion a group of humans has ever reached. But, okay, they're traumatized. I'll give them that. So they build a city called Libria. And in Libria, everyone takes a drug twice daily called Prozium. Prozium suppresses emotion. All emotion. Joy, grief, love, anger, wonder, the whole shebang, gone. Art is illegal. Music is illegal. Literature is illegal. Anything that might make you feel something. Illegal. Punishable by death. They call violations of this sense offense. The enforcers are called grammaton clerics. The government is called the Tetragrammaton Council, and their leader is called Father. Now, I want to stop here for a second because the naming is just too good to skip past. The Tetragrammaton? That's a Hebrew theological term. It refers to the four-letter name of God. The leader is called Father. The enforcers are called clerics. The drug is administered like a daily sacrament. This is not an accident. Wimmer built the governing structure of Libria to look exactly like organized religion with one very specific thing removed: the transcendence. Keep the ritual, keep the hierarchy, keep the daily practice, keep the punishment for heresy. Remove the awe, remove the meaning, remove the love. What you're left with is control, wearing the architecture of faith. That's Libria. And before anyone comes to the lobby to argue with me, I'm not saying religion is bad. I'm just saying power structures that use religious architecture to demand compliance without offering meaning are a specific and documented thing. And Wimmer knew exactly what he was building. Now, here's the receipt that I think changes everything about how you watch this film. The drug is called Prozium. Get it? Prozium. Say that out loud for a second. Prozium. Prozac. Prozium. That's not a coincidence either. Wimmer said explicitly that the film was a commentary on what he called our society's self-medication epidemic. The title of the film, Equilibrium, is a stab at the common claim that drugs like Prozac and Xanax are taken to help you smooth out extremes of mood. Find your equilibrium. Now, I want to be very careful here because I'm not saying antidepressants are bad. They're not bad. For a lot of people, they're necessary and incredibly important and genuinely life-saving. My best friend in this whole world has to take antidepressants. So that's not the argument. The argument Wimmer is making is about what happens when a culture decides that the goal is the absence of extreme feeling rather than the ability to process it. The argument Wimmer is making is about what happens when a culture decides that the goal is the absence of extreme feeling rather than the ability to process it. When the goal stops being help people manage overwhelming emotion and starts being help people not feel inconvenient things, that's a different thing. And Libria is what happens when you follow that logic, all the way to its natural conclusion. No grief, no joy, no love, no anger, just smooth. Equilibrium. The film cost $20 million to produce. It was shot mostly in Berlin, deliberately chosen for its fascist architecture, because Wimmer wanted buildings that made individual people feel small, and it only got 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical consensus was a reheated mishmash of other sci-fi movies. But you know what? The audience score sits at 84%. The critics called it derivative. The audience called it one of the most underrated films ever made. And here's the beautiful irony of that. The critics dismissed Equilibrium the same way the Tetragrammaton dismissed sense offenders. Something that makes you feel something. Dangerous. Label it. Dismiss it. Move on. The film got its revenge the slow way. When it released on DVD, it garnered a cult following and spread by word of mouth. 20 years later, people are still talking about this movie. The idea was bulletproof. Wait, I said that last episode, didn't I? But you know what? It applies here too. This episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast is brought to you by Prozium. Are you experiencing feelings? Grief, joy, love, anger, wonder, the full spectrum of human emotional experience. Prozium can help. Taken twice daily, Prozium suppresses emotion at the source, allowing you to function as a productive member of society without the inconvenience of caring about things. Side effects may include the inability to appreciate music, the inability to connect with other humans, the inability to find meaning in art, literature, or nature, the complete absence of the experience that makes life worth living, and occasionally, a single missed dose that changes everything. Prozium is mandatory. Non-compliance is a sense offense. Sense offense is punishable by death. Prozium, because the alternative is feeling things, and feelings are what starts wars. Please consult your cleric before adjusting your dosage. Do not adjust your dosage. There is no adjusting your dosage. Take the Prozium. And hey, real quick pause for my audio listeners over on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're enjoying the show, then do me a favor. Follow it so brand new episodes land automatically in your feed. Then, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. It genuinely helps independent podcasts just like this one survive. That's it. Back to it. Now let me talk about John Preston, because Preston is one of the most interesting protagonist choices in any dystopian film. He's not a rebel, he's not a dissident, he's not someone who secretly disagreed with the system all along. He's the best the system ever produced. Top-ranking cleric, perfect record, loyal, efficient, completely committed to the cause. He executes sense offenders without hesitation. He executes his own partner in the opening scenes of the film for hiding a book of Yeats poetry. Preston is not the underdog who rose up against the machine. Preston is the machine. And then, by accident, he drops his dose. And not heroically. He just knocks it over, and it breaks. Bureaucratic difficulties prevent him from getting another immediately. And feeling finds him through that crack. A sunrise, music, the texture of a woman's face, a litter of puppies in a bombed-out building. And here's what I find genuinely profound about that choice. Preston doesn't decide to feel. Feeling decides for him. The more heroic version of the story would have Preston secretly questioning the system all along, having doubts, making a conscious choice to rebel. And Wimmer didn't write that. He wrote a man who was completely compliant until a crack in the system let something in that he couldn't put back. And then he had a choice. Get back on the drug or follow the feeling wherever it goes. And he follows it. And still, not because he's a hero. It's because once you've felt something real, it's really hard to unfeel it. The only way back is to choose numbness deliberately. And he just can't do that. That's the most honest thing in the movie, and it's the thing the critics dismissed as derivative. Yes, Steve? Steve says, wait a minute, he didn't choose to rebel, it was an accident? Yeah, dude. Steve also says that feels like something that's happened to him, where something just got through without him deciding to let it in. Dude, that's not a movie thing. That's just how it works. The crack comes first. The choice, well, it comes after. Okay, let's talk about the puppy scene proper. And I already made my John Wick joke, so I'm coming at this one clean. Preston is in the wasteland outside Libria. He's executing a group of sense offenders. And he finds a litter of puppies. And something happens on his face. Christian Bale, who is extraordinary in this film, does something with his eyes in that moment that I think is one of the best pieces of acting in early 2000s cinema. The system has given him every reason to destroy those puppies. They're contraband. They provoke emotion. They're a sense offense. And he can't do it. He hides them. And here's the thing that I've been thinking about since I rewatched this for this episode. Preston didn't rediscover his humanity through Beethoven. He didn't rediscover it through Yeats. He didn't rediscover it through a great painting or a profound piece of literature. He rediscovered it through a dog who just wanted to exist. Feeling doesn't need to be sophisticated to be worth protecting. It doesn't need to be high art. It doesn't need to be intellectual. It just needs to be real. A small animal who didn't ask to exist in a world that wanted to eliminate everything it represented. And a man who looked at it and could not follow his programming. That's the moment the film earns everything. Not the gun kata, not the climax, but the puppies in the rubble. And the look on Christian Bale's face. Now, here's where I want to bring this all home. Because Libria is fiction. Prozium does not exist. The Grammaton clerics are not real. But the system Wimmer was describing, my friends, we have versions of it. We don't call it sense offense. We have other names for people who feel too much. Weak, sensitive, soft, snowflakes. Especially, and I'm going to say this clearly, for men. The specific machine that says men shouldn't cry, shouldn't grieve, shouldn't express vulnerability, shouldn't connect too deeply, shouldn't be in any visible way affected by things. That machine is heartbreakingly real. It doesn't have a name like the Tetragrammaton. It doesn't have clerics with gun kata, but it enforces compliance. Through mockery, through shame, through the specific look another man gives you when you say something honest about how you're feeling. And it took me years, guys, real years of real work to reconnect with the version of myself that existed before I learned that specific set of rules. The kid who watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer with his dad, who hid under blankets watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, who felt things fully and didn't know yet that he was supposed to manage that. That kid didn't need Prozium. The world handed him a cultural version of it and told him it was maturity. My friends, it was not maturity. It was just compliance. And the reconnection, the real one, came the same way it came for Preston. Not through a heroic decision, just through a crack. Something got through, and I just couldn't put it back. And to be completely honest, I didn't want to. Today's episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast is also brought to you by The Crack in the System. The crack in the system is not a product. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be scheduled. It cannot be heroically chosen. The crack in the system arrives without warning, through a drop dose, through a song that gets through an animal in the rubble who just wants to exist, through a conversation that goes somewhere you never planned, through a movie that you thought was about gun kata. Once the crack in the system has appeared, you have one choice: get back on the drug or follow the feeling wherever it goes. Most systems will tell you to get back on the drug because the drug is comfortable, the drug is familiar. The drug is what the people around you are taking. The drug doesn't require anything of you. Following the feeling is harder. It requires you to be wrong about things you were certain of. It requires you to sit with grief you were told not to have. It requires you to love things in a world that calls love a vulnerability. The crack in the system. It's not a revolution. It's just a missed dose. And then a choice. What you do with it, well, that's up to you. Steve says he's going to need a minute. Dude, take your time. Steve says, that's not really about the movie anymore, is it? Buddy, it never was. So here's where I want to land. Equilibrium was right about something. And not in a this is literally going to happen kind of way, in a this is already happening and here's what it looks like when you follow the logic all the way to the conclusion kind of way. The systems that tell us not to feel things, not to grieve too long, not to love too openly, not to be visibly affected by the world around us. Those systems don't have clerics with gun kata. They have much more subtle enforcement mechanisms. But the goal? It's the exact same. Compliance, equilibrium, and the crack, the missed dose, the puppy in the rubble, the song that gets through. That's not weakness. That's the most human thing there is. Preston didn't become dangerous because he picked up a gun. He became dangerous because he felt something and refused to unfeel it. Without love, without anger, without sorrow, breath is just a clock ticking. That's a quote from the film. And you know what? I think a lot about that line. And I mean a lot. And that's going to do it for this edition of Checkpoint Thursday. Preston in the film didn't choose to feel. Feeling found him through a crack, and the system called that weakness. Does that sound familiar? We live in a world that tells men specifically that emotion is weakness, that sensitivity is soft, that caring too much makes you a snowflake. And I'm going to be honest and name it clearly. That is the Tetragrammaton. Different name, same exact playbook. Control the feeling, and you control the person. But here's what Equilibrium actually understood that a lot of people missed. Feeling isn't weakness. Feeling is what makes life worth living. The art, the music, the dog that almost got you in the middle of a Tuesday, the person you burn the entire system down for. That's not soft. That's the entire point. So quit worrying about what the system wants you to be. Find your crack in the system and let that feeling in. Next week, Starship Troopers, the movie that was so accurate about fascist propaganda that an entire generation of viewers missed the satire completely and thought it was just a cool bug war movie. Would you like to know more? Now, before we get out of here, if you're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed and following the show, and then leave a 5-star rating and review. Word of mouth and ratings are exactly how independent podcasts grow, and every single one of them are appreciated, and they absolutely matter. Then, come find us in the lobby. That's the Average Joe Nerdcast private Facebook group. I'll drop the link to the group in the show notes, or you can head straight over to Facebook, and in the search bar, just type Average Joe Nerdcast, the lobby, and you will find the page. Then tell me, what was your crack in the system? What got through when you weren't expecting it? Drop it all in the thread. I kind of told you mine. Now the floor is yours. Quick shout out to my player 2, who has watched me go from this movie is just cool gunfights to this movie changed the way I understand myself. Across approximately 15 years and several rewatches. You're the reason any of this happens. I've been Nate. Stay gold, nerd bold. And I'll catch you on the next one.
Game over.